Now, in the previous example that I gave you about American Capital's investment in Middleby, American Capital was one of the largest private equity firms in the United States, and certainly the largest publicly traded one. And it was typically a buyout shop. I mean, American Capital largely focused on control buyouts. They wanted to buy businesses that they could take control of, do acquisitions over time, focus on growth, and exit in the future. In the particular case of Middleby, it was late 2001. We had just had the dot-com bust. We were immediately after the terror attacks of 9/11. So the capital markets were particularly difficult to tap. And that's where private equity stepped up. Banks weren't interested in lending. Middleby wanted to make the acquisition of Blodgett. They went out to traditional lenders who had really no interest in taking the risk at that point in time. So they called in private equity, and that's where American Capital stepped up. So in late 2001, American Capital invested $25 million in convertible debt and equity and got a 5% stake in Middleby. American Capital exited 1 year later for a 37% return. Now, that's an example of a growth equity investment. It wasn't a control stake in Middleby. It was a minority stake in Middleby. And American Capital provided that capital specifically for the purposes of Middleby doing the acquisition of Blodgett. Now, you could look at that and say, wow, 37% return, that's great for the private equity investor, not so great for Middleby. It ultimately turned out to be a slam dunk for Middleby. And it was, quite frankly, expensive capital, right? Equity capital typically is more expensive than debt capital, but when no other capital exists, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. So allowing private equity come in and fill that gap was the only way that Middleby was going to get that acquisition done. So if private equity has reached out to you, feel free to reach out to me. You can contact me on the contact form below in the description, as well as you can always reach me on LinkedIn. I'm Paul Giannamore. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you on the next one.